Hello, everybody. My name is Brock. Thank you, John. Thank you for that. My name is Brock. I grew up in West Jordan, Salt Lake City, Utah. I am 26 years old. I grew up with two very good parents, two very good, well-off parents, middle class. Um, I have one sibling, one older brother, 3 years older than me. Uh, we never got along. I always felt like an only child. I always felt like an only child because we never could relate to each other. Um, and that's why I always look for brotherhood in the wrong places. I always look for connection in the wrong areas. Around 16, I think I smoked my first cigarette. I think in elementary school, I did some pretty crazy things then too. I always just kind of was a rebel, but also I wanted to be all different genres of people. I didn't know who I was. I couldn't figure that out. Curiosity killed this cat a million times, and I could say that over and over. I feel like I was all different types of the groups throughout high school, like emo, classy, hippie, preppy. Like I was all of them at once, even one time. I just didn't know who I was. Um, and I couldn't seek acceptance through myself and through others, really. And I thought I did, but it was through a false identity. Like I thought I was cool for this, or I thought I was showing love because I was doing these things, helping these individuals, paying for their food, or whatever that looked like. But I'm gonna rewind a little bit. I grew up fishing and doing mixed martial arts, and that I always loved doing that. I always loved going fishing with my father. He would take me to my martial art classes almost every night. And I started doing that for a long time, the mixed martial arts for a long time, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai. And I love that. I took like second in a high-end competition. I can't remember if it was state or just local, but I love doing jiu-jitsu, and that made me really fit. But once I started doing all the wrong things, like started smoking cigarettes and corrupting my lungs and my health, uh, that's when I just stopped caring. I stopped caring about the things that were good for me. And that's when I had to surround myself with individuals that didn't care what I was doing at those times. I went to a good school. I had good friends, like a lot of good friends, and I still chose to hang out with the wrong people doing the wrong things. Um, this consisted from when I was like 16 all the way up till before I came to Red Barn. Really, um, I just my life revolved around all the wrong things. Like, and I'm just gonna say it. It was just through my addiction, right? At first, it started with something small, something not the hard drugs, but it started with something small, and it progressed with me. And I was in denial my whole life. I didn't want to think that I had an addictive personality. I could drop this, but do this. I could drop this, but drink alcohol, do things that were socially acceptable, but that's not true. I couldn't I couldn't till now real identify that, hey, I have a problem and I have an addictive personality, and I can't just pick something up and put it down. I can't do things even when I can't stop doing things even when I don't like them when it comes to those certain matters. Until now, I couldn't acknowledge these things. Um, you know, I uh I'm kind of drifting, but and with these things came, me burning bridges and losing relationships that mattered to me a lot. One with my father, I'd go to Flaming Gorge, we'd go boating, trolling for kokanee, flame on the back of the boat, and those were very special moments to me, being out in those waters and learning these things. And I'm living this double life. Like at the time, I was like I'm a city boy, but I'm an outdoors guy too. I couldn't, I couldn't figure out what I wanted to be once again, right? Um, but of course, the weight pulled me in more and more on the wrong side. Because growing up, my parents were awesome and everything, but still, there's a small part of me that's like, oh no, I'd rather listen to my friends or do this with my friends, but they're always like, just like, I don't know. It just I lost that one that stands within, that one that my mom wanted to raise me out to be. Um, and I did this for years. I kept making poor choices. And eventually it led up to worse addictions, after high school. And then I met up meeting a girl that was a year clean off some things as well. And I ended up restarting all that for her, and it just got really bad from there on out. I probably hit rock bottom. I can't even count how many times I've hit rock bottom, up and down, up and down. Um, I've done the 30, the 60, 90-day programs, but every time I went, I just ended up networking with people that still weren't ready yet. People that still were making poor choices or didn't have any true desire to do something different with their life. Um, and I couldn't see that. I do 60 days. I'm cured. I'm a lot better. I got a little physical health. I gained some weight, but I couldn't keep it. I couldn't keep my routine. I had nobody holding me accountable. Nobody keep on pushing me to do better. And because eventually my family just ended up giving up on me, really, because I gave them no choice. I kept giving them, the blind eye. Say, hey, I'm not going to listen to what you have to say. Deep down, I would listen. When my father's giving me a haircut or something like that. But at the end of the day, I did whatever I wanted. Right? That's just what we do. We do whatever we want. Whatever we want to feel the pleasure in our brain. Whatever however we fill that void. And I just couldn't fill that void ever. Yeah, and I loved making music, and I would sit there every day since I was 16 with my laptop and my notepad and a rhyme vocabulary or a dictionary, and I would study all these words and figure out how to piece them together. And I'd sit there in my room and rehearse them and rehearse them and rehearse them, and I made some beautiful things. Like, and with my addiction, I started tainting and dulling that part of me and that process of me, that creative side, and when I started losing more and more of that, I just was like, wow, I'm really falling off the edge. I really don't know how to identify who I am, because that was the one thing that I could feel like that it made me understand who I was and how to express myself. Was through creative writing. Um, let's see here. Um, Another thing about me is I kind of was a little bit of a computer nerd, and I loved video games there for a little bit, and so did my brother, but we still never got along. Like, we'd always get in fights, and of course I was the one starting them, because I was just the younger brother that, yeah, I was rude. I was a bad brother. Um, and you know, through all these, like, this insanity of going through these cycles, doing the same thing but expecting different results. I just feel I kept lying to myself, like, I'm gonna get over this hump this time. I'm gonna be able to do it this time. It just wasn't true. It ended up being worse. I ended up catching a new charge, or I just ended up destroying my health, my relationships more and more and more. And at this point, I just didn't know any other way to live, but through my addiction and just my lifestyle of just not being a part of. I wasn't being a part of society. I was on the other end, and on the other spectrum, wearing that black hat. And it's not until my very last run I really hit such a bottom that I was willing to do anything this time. I spent 2 weeks in the hospital detoxing, pretty damaged, pretty banged up, and that's when my mom heard about a Red Barn, you know, I couldn't do any of my legal stuff on the outside on my own because, of course, I just did whatever I wanted, not caring about the consequence. But I spent the 2 weeks in LDS hospital, and I just was in bad shape. I think I was down to like 150 pounds. I called Alan for every day for 2 weeks. He says, "Call me at this time every single day until you're able to come." And I had like open wounds, all sorts of nastiness. I just was in bad shape, like I said, and I called him every day. I made sure to call him at that time every day, because that was like my process to show him I'm serious. Like I wanna do something different. And after about a week, he heard my voice. Is like, all right, now I can hear some ampage in your voice. I can start to hear there's somebody there, because when I first was calling him, I sound like a zombie. Um, it's crazy how much we lie to ourselves, thinking that we're in one shape, but we're in a whole nother condition, one that's just not even livable. Uh, so I did that for about 2 weeks, and then I came here to Red Barn. I think Danny was the first person that saw me. Um, and when I showed up here, I was a lot like, I was really quiet. I was really quiet. I didn't want to speak in seminars. I didn't. I was about like 150 pounds. Um, and it took me a while. It took me a long time to warm up here. I just know that I had to do anything to change my life. I did whatever they asked. I didn't have to agree or disagree. I just had to be. And that was the most important thing for me for a very long time. No matter, I just couldn't have any official opinion about anything, or I was gonna start telling myself some narratives that aren't true. And because I'm a runner, I was always a runner, but this time there was something different. I was truly broken, and I didn't feel like I was beyond repair at this point. Um, but I'm here at Red Barn, and for once, I wanted to see something through and tell my mom, because I told my mom I promised her I'd actually finish this out and see it through. And in my mind, in that time when I told her that before I came here, I didn't know actually what I'd be capable of, but I knew deep down I had that burning desire that this is different this time. Um, so now I'm here. I'm here at the barn. I'm just being. I'm doing what they asked me, and I'm just making the best of it. I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I see the reflection, and I don't like who I'm looking at. And it took me a long time. Still, even till this day, it's a progress. But I definitely can relate or identify with the old person that I was before. Um, I went through, a lot of people would say that I wasn't willing to get the game a lot. I would process these things a lot, but there was a point in my program where I did go through some things. I did have my fair share of homework to do. Um, every day is an assignment. Every day is a quiz to make the right choice. Um, and what I would say to you guys is give yourself a chance. Be patient with yourselves. Allow yourself to see the other side of things. You're not going to agree with yourself on a day-to-day basis, and that could be 3, 4, 5 years from now. You're still not going to. But if you just have enough humility within inside to say, "Hey, I am the problem, and I do have an issue with substance, or whatever, or a lifestyle issue," then maybe you can actually get somewhere. You can get up and work hard every single day, but the internal work is where everything comes through. Everything that goes down in here. When you do something wrong and you don't pass on yourself, and you feel like you're cringing out of your skin, that's when some progress has been made. Um, Besides that, does anybody have any questions for me? Zoe?
What stage of the program, your program, you consider hardest?
So intern phase was pretty tough, but resident phase was also pretty hard as well. Intern phase, you know what? It almost felt easier than my resident phase because at this point I was just so broken that, excuse me, that I just was so good at being at that moment. Just like I'm okay with whatever comes my way. But resident phase, I started getting some wins under my belt, and but the thing is I was also I was on the moves every single day, and then in that era we had some pretty tough crew leads, and we would do some hard things at hard paces that time, and you know, and there were some individuals that were hard to be compatible with. We played hard games. We we did what Red Barn asked us to do, but there was also a point where you know, there was a moment that I was weak and I didn't hold some of my brothers accountable. And Kevin Real ended up giving me 55 hours because we drank an energy drink on a move. You know, it seems so small, but it's the principle. We buried it, we minimized it, and we didn't hold each other accountable. And I never felt so gross in my entire life. Like I'm sure I have, but being here in an environment of change, it's not something you can just bury. It takes a negative, and it's what we used to do. And in that moment, I knew that you know I had what was coming to me. That was a pivotal moment in my program. I had a lot of pivotal moments, but that one that hit home with me very deeply. Um, yeah. Any other questions?
Resentments toward yourself, like, say, with your brother, you have made amends, yeah, love that relationship after.
So I've only seen him once since, and it was on my first home visit. Um, you know, I definitely do see a future. He's never seen me like this. So, and I've never seen me like this. So, of course, yeah, that's gonna be my first. You know, my recovery and my family, and I'm gonna try and repair that relationship. Yes. Any other question? I'll be. If you're not squirming, you're not learning. That demon you say is always gonna be there, but you learn better tools when you put yourself in a better environment. You know, like I said, at the 30 and 60, 90s, I'd get a little healthy and then the urges would come. But I had no authentic connection in my life. I had nobody, I didn't know what real connection was. I looked for brotherhood in all the wrong places. People that are doing all the wrong things. People that tell me to do something even when it wasn't good for my health or the people around me. And hyping it up and saying, hey, that's cool to do. But now that I've learned what good actually is or what a friendship actually is. And when I do get those urges, I can go talk to somebody that will help me see things for what they actually are. And you know what? It gets easier, especially when you have 2 years of practice. When you, or, you know, even a year of practice, you start to understand what your requirements are. And when you start to feel a certain way, you just know that, hey, this doesn't feel right. This feels uneasy. Like for me, like I need to remove myself from the situation. And like I said before, insanity, doing the same thing but expecting different results. I can't go and take that drink again. I can't do that again because every single time it ends me up in the same place, and then I want to rip my hair out, wondering why am I here again?
What was your most memorable day?
Oh geez, that's a hard one to pinpoint. That's a really tough one to answer. So I'm just gonna kind of be in general. Honestly, I've had a lot of amazing moments here. You know, there's been plenty of times with Chandler on the moves that I've just laughed my heart out. And there's been a lot of times where I tell my story, and you know, the customer would get very emotional with me. Um, there's been a very lot of touching moments, and I can sit there and think of them, but all as I just in my mind right now is I see them flash through. It's just too quick pinpoint right now, but yeah, I've had a lot of touching moments here at Red Barn. Yeah. Any other questions?
There were a point when you talk about leaving.
You know what? I've never thought about leaving. I no. I think there's just something that I hold special to me. There's times I disagree with things and I'm like, screw this, screw that, for sure. But at the end of the day, I dig for my humility so deep because of the pain that I've caused myself previously before. Like, you know, we put ourselves through so much, but at this time, I finally have just come to the realization where I'm not gonna refund my own misery. And I've done that my whole life, and I've come so far. I would be an idiot to do otherwise. Just be patient with yourself. You know, the best advice I can give you interns is just be patient with yourself, and don't get ahead of yourself either. Take bite-sized chunks. You know, just get through another day. As cliche as that sounds, it's true. You know, you'll start to feel just be patient with yourself. You'll start to feel the validity come through when you start to speak. Because at first, you know, I knew I didn't have any validity to what I was saying. I could tell people I wanted to do this or that, but it didn't mean anything. It didn't mean anything until I actually put in some serious time and put in some serious effort. I want to think showing up for a day is serious effort in my recovery, but it's not. I have to do it at a year at a time. And I didn't think I'd ever have a year of recovery in my life, but until I came to Red Barn. And now I know what real milestones are, and I go by years. So yeah. Any other questions? All right, thank you guys.
Good evening, family. I'm Nick. So that's kind of hard to follow up. I don't have the voice that he does. But all right, I'll just start off by saying that, like, when I was sitting here in a gray shirt, right, and I was coming to these task talks, like I felt like man, I can't wait to tell my story, right? And the weird thing is that the journey that I took through here, I'm now leading right up to this. I was like, it's not as important as I thought. At least the things that I've experienced here and the lessons that I've learned, right? And the one thing that was coming to mind was that the reason that I thought it was so important was because I was full of myself, right? I was deceiving myself. Like I thought that the things that I had gone through that had happened to me that put me here in the first place were just like, you know, I was the victim and I made all these excuses, you know, and I was just, you know, I was just happy to be out of that other place, but I was still sitting in the front row going, I can't wait to tell my story. I got something to say, right? And I'm going to be, you know, it's going to make me feel better. It's going to clear it. Everyone's going to know, but now that I'm sitting here, that's just not the case, right? So like one of my biggest hardest things, and I've learned a lot about myself through here is like self-deception. Like I absolutely deceive myself. I tell myself that I'm this when maybe I'm like behaving like this, you know, and I look back on it and I've like done that for, you know, the majority of my using life, you know. And so I don't know. I'll reel it back and then maybe I'll scoot forward here and there. But so my name is Nick. I was born 1979. Yes, I'm showing my age. In a town just south of Chicago called Kankakee, Illinois. My mom is from a small farm town a couple hours outside of Chicago, and my dad is you know, he's from that area as well, just blue collar. Grandparents were farmers and carpenters, right? And so like my dad was he's a Vietnam veteran. My uncle's a Vietnam veteran. And so like, you know, they lived a blue collar life. And then I was born there in Kankakee. I like grew up there for like the first 4 years of my life on a river. My parents, like, they were living their best life. You know, they lived right on this river, they had a boat, you know, they would fish, catch pike right off I remember watching my dad catch a pike like this big, like right out of the river to the backyard. It was so cool, you know. Then my dad got sick and he had to take an early retirement. They were both postal workers after he got back from Vietnam. And so like he had to retire. I had relatives down in Texas. I moved to Texas in like 1984. And so this is like the largest army base in Texas, right? And it's just a huge, diverse population, you know. So I grew up like being very open to all kinds of different people and everything. And being in Texas, if you've ever been to Texas, man, football is the real deal. Like, so like my friends all got into football, and so it was like that was it, you know. I was playing sports, but my parents were always pushing like grades. So I grew up in like school was just like, you know, it was like that was what my parents shoved down my throat, you know, and I didn't want to do it. I just wanted to run around with my friends and play sports. And so I kind of like realized like even then, like I look back and like I was just manipulating, right? I was like, I knew what would keep my parents off my tail end. So all I had to do was get good grades and they'd look the other way. And then so I was, you know, I was living my best life, was playing sports, and then keeping my grades up because that's what you had to do, stay on the you know, football and the basketball team. And then like family member gets sick back in Illinois. I'm like maybe like 12, 13 years old. And we moved back to Illinois. And I like at that age, like my world's crushed, right? I'm just like, man, you know, I was starting on these sports teams. I had my friends, and then I moved, you know, 1,500, 2,000 miles away, whole new culture and everything else. I had to adapt, dude. And I crawled into a shell. And then those other things still were with me though, right? Like keeping good grades and doing all that stuff. And then like I started getting in high school and I started getting a little more comfortable. And what's important to me is like my parents are like, hey, get a car. But you get a car, you get a job, you know. So I start working. I'm going to school, I'm working, I'm keeping my grades, and I'm just going at it. I'm just going at it hardcore nonstop. Like it's when I get out of school, it's practice straight to work, grades, and back and forth, and just keep doing that cycle, right? And then just staying pressed. And then all of a sudden, I'm running around with these friends. I got this nice car, and like, you know, they start bringing me to these parties, and I'm like, okay, you know, and like over time, I'm worried about my health, so I don't even care. But after a while, you know, I'm like, all right, let me check this out. So, you know, I start partying with them on the weekends, right? And like, that's how I spent my life. And then because the grades are important, it's like go to college. So I graduate, I go to college, to a university called Southern Illinois University. If there's any sports fans here, anybody know what a Saluki is? Well, neither did ESPN, because when I was going to school there, our basketball team made it to the final, the 64, like 3 out of the 5 years that I went there. ESPN every year, like, what's a Saluki? But anyways, so, but I go there because it's a party school, man. So I'm getting good grades, but initially, and then I just keep partying. And then my grades are dropping and I don't care, right? Because I'm having a good time. But it's taking its toll. I drop out, I'm gonna go regroup, and then I get married, thinking that's gonna like keep me straight and level. And I have a child, and then I decide, all right, it's time to go back. I go back, I start partying again, and then it's like the dean pulls me in his office and he's like, hey, we're not funding you anymore. You know, he's like, you're gonna get kicked out if you don't keep your grades up. So this is a cycle that I repeat, which is kind of like parallels why I'm here. It's like when my back is against the wall, you know, it's like all or nothing, right? So I quit partying, I get my grades back up, I graduate, and then I get a job out here in Intermountain Healthcare, you know. So my ex's family's from out here, so we fly out here, and I move all the way out to Utah, 2004, and I'm only 24 at this point in time, right? And I buy a house. I feel like I got it made, right? I'm young, got a house, I'm doing well, I'm supporting my family. And then like, I don't know, about like 27, 20, and I quit my party at 21. And then I did all of a sudden, like years later, it's like 2007, 2008, like, you know, I got 6 years of of sobriety, 6, 7 years of sobriety on me, man. And it just kind of, it's weird. It comes back into my life and it just creeps in slowly, right? And I'm still doing well, and I don't notice it, right? Because it just slowly creeps in, and next thing I know, like it's pissing off my family, and we're clashing, and like, dude, my world starts to crash, and I'm just making every excuse, that self-deception. I'm like, I'm still doing fine, it's everybody else's problem. It's not my problem, And I'm like, well, this person did this to me. And so I'm making excuses, right? Next thing I know, man, I'm kind of standing alone, and I'm still making excuses. And I'm like, all right, well, now I'm just going to ratchet it up. So I keep doing what I'm doing. I just keep partying hard, and I lose my career. I walk away from my house. I walk away from all the stuff that I worked so hard throughout all my 20s, and then I'm going into my 30s, and I'm like right back at 30 years old. I moved back in with my parents, and I was just like, I was so ashamed, man. I'm like, all of that, and I just threw it all away, right? But do I stop? No, I don't stop. It's like that addict behavior. I just keep going, and so, it's just over and over again. It's that cycle, right? I do just enough. I sober up just long enough that I'm okay, and then crash and burn, right? I throw it all away. I start it back up, and then I'm trying to pick up the pieces. I'm asking for help. Hey, I'm asking my family to help me pick up the pieces. We start getting things back together, and I build it up. And I do this for another 10 years, and it's just like, it's this vicious cycle. I'm always trying to get back what I used to have. I'm telling myself, and I'm manipulating everybody around me. I'm telling them, hey, look, here's what I'm doing. It's like let me show you the good that I'm doing, right, for you and for everybody else. But I'm like trying to keep things hidden. I'm like, no, you don't need to see this, but this is what I'm presenting you. Meanwhile, in the back, I'm deceiving them, and I'm deceiving myself, because I'm still telling myself that this is all, this is the good. This is what I got to offer. And so it's just a vicious cycle for years. And so, and then like it all comes to a head, right? I'm 39, and I'm like, have a really shitty night, and I don't remember anything. And next thing I know, like, it's like, all right, it's time. I tell myself it is time. And so I get myself back like stronger than I've been in a long time. And so things are going well for me. I'm making good money. I got a career going again, right? And like, what the hell do I do with it, right? It's like, and I make excuses, right? Like, I was like, oh, COVID happens, and I'm bored. And so I start that slow dip again, and each time it's just, the end result is just worse and worse. It's like, when am I going to tell myself that, when am I going to tell myself that I can't do this, right? This is bad. I can't keep deceiving myself, And so I have another one of these nights, and it's like, it's deadly, right? Look back on it, and I'm like, I can't, but I'm still pointing the finger at somebody that I feel like put me in this situation. But I was like, I should have held myself accountable and removed myself and owned up to it, right? And stop pointing fingers. But instead, I just build resentments. And so I create another situation that's 10 times worse, and I'm like, next thing I know, I'm in the other place, right? And I don't even recognize how bad it is. And, when I finally the dust starts to settle, and I realize how bad it is, I'm like, I'm screwed. I'm like, what am I going to do? And it's, I felt empty. I was like, out of all the things that I've dealt with, right, or I believe have happened to me, or I've pulled on other people, I'm like, here I am, and now how am I going to tell the people that I care about, like, I won't see you again for at least 10 years, and like, how am I going to run that past them, people that have helped me pick up the pieces for years, and help patch me back together. And so, I'm sitting there, and that's my future. And I remember when I first got to this place, I heard about Red Barn, and I'm just like, I'm talking to somebody, and they're like, yeah, it's 2 years, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm gonna be all right. I'm gonna get out of this, like we all say. And over time, and I'm like, this this is the end result, right? Like, this isn't going to go well for me. And so, and I'm like, I can't live like this. And what am I going to do? I don't want to do this. And so like, so I finally I write that letter, you know, and I send it off. And, you know, there's somebody in here, there's people in here that I've, you know, had talks with about this place. And I'm just like, man, it's not going to happen, you know, and it's not going to happen. And then, you know, and then finally it's like, it happens. Right. And, you know, I wasted another year of my life, like, you know, and I probably could have jumped on it sooner. And finally it's like, all right, well, here it is, right? Here's they say the golden ticket, right? And if you're sitting here in the front row and you're like, yeah, this isn't the golden ticket. Well, I mean, I'm living proof, you know, and I've met other people, you know, they're the living proof that this really is the golden ticket, right? Like, I wasted over a decade of my life through that stupid cycle, right? And I kept telling myself, right, oh, I'm okay because I'm showing you guys this, right? I'm doing this. I'm capable of achieving this, right? But I'm just deceiving myself because if I don't own up to my own shit, right? If I don't own up to the lies that I'm telling myself and to telling the other people, you know, I mean, I should have done this, you know, 10 years ago. You know what I'm saying? I would have made it, I'd have saved, you know, over a decade of my time and my life and other people around me, you know. And so I'm sitting there and I'm excited and it finally happens. And, you know, and I show up here and right off the rip, right? Like, I'm excited. I got the golden ticket, but right off the rip, I'm still doing self-deception. You know, I'm sitting like you guys in the front row and I'm poking holes and I'm like, yeah, thank God I'm here, but you know, I'm just going to do my time. And then I was just like I said in the very beginning, right? I was ready to tell my story because I had something to prove. I had something to say, you know what I'm saying? And I'm so full of myself. And I mean, and it took 17 months now. And it took months and months and months of like learning lessons the hard way and like evaluating myself, you know, and like realizing that like all the stuff that got me here was the stuff that I was still sitting here doing. I was telling myself I was better than this. I was telling myself that this was me, but the reality is that this part of me is the one that's just sinking, you know, all that stuff that I have to offer. And you know, my whole intern phase, I didn't trust anybody. You know, there's a couple people in here, my leader, and I didn't care what you guys said, man. I was like, whatever, you know, you guys got nothing for me, right? I was like, you can just keep talking. I'm not gonna listen, you know. And I wish I would have like given in sooner, right? I wish I would have been more trusting sooner. You know, it's like it took me a while. It took me at least till I was close to my blue shirt to like really like open up more to people and accept what was being offered here, you know. And I wish I'd have just jumped in sooner. You know, I would have enjoyed more of the earlier. But there's like we talk about paradigm shifts, you know, and I don't know, it was somewhere between my red shirt and my blue shirt where like I realized like, man, it was just better to just help people out, step in and always, you know, always really have the right thing in mind, right? It's like I didn't, you know, when you put it's like what got me here was this, and I just wanted to bury that when I got here. I'm like, that wasn't really me. That's not a part of me. All the stuff that I'm talking about, like I acted like it didn't exist. Like that's, you know, this was really who I was, and I was holding on to it for, you know, so hard. And it's just like that reality is that you have to address that. The black hat, right? We talk about the white hat and the black hat, but you have to address the black hat. You have to be like, yes, I am this. It takes your brothers to sit there and tell you, man, you're doing this. And the more you reject it, right, the more hours you're going to get. And the harder that lesson is to learn, you know. And I don't know, you know, it's like I didn't want to keep learning the lesson the hard way, right? Because that's why I'm here. And you know, and like, and in reality, it is an SCF. I started looking at the things that got me here, not as that. I mean, they were negative in the time that they were happening to me, right? Because I was losing up all the crap that I worked for, you know, and the loved ones I cared about, right? I was losing them and I was blaming everybody else. But when I really addressed, like, man, if I would have just said the right things, if I'd have just you know, when shit hit the fan, if I'd have just done the right things then and there, you know, I wouldn't be like, I wouldn't have to have gone through this. But the reality is that like the relationships that I've like been able to like rebuild, right? And the person that I look at, like, I wish like sometimes I could put up, you guys can look at it on the tablet, like my intern intake phase, you know, I was like, skin was pasty white. I was sickly looking. I was tired and I was exhausted, right? And you know, and I didn't. You look in the mirror, right? And you know, after a year of the other place, that was really exaggerated. But the reality is that there was still a buildup to that, right? I was living this life that was just unhealthy, and that paradigm shift I had between the red and the blue shirt phase here, between the freshman and the resident, like I realized that I wanted to be a better version of myself, right? All the things that we talk about here, like do the hard things first, right? And man, and the more I wanted to fight it, the more I wanted to like just lay in bed. Although I've never been late, knock on wood if there's any here, but I've never been late down the stairs or anywhere else, right? But I would just like, oh, I just didn't want to do it. Not happy to do it. But the more that I put the hard things first, over time, day in and day out and day in, you know, it takes like 30 days to build a habit. And once that becomes a habit, man, the hard stuff does get easier, man. And it's just like, I just wanted to push myself. I just wanted to be a better person. We talk about the one that stands within, man. And I just like, you know, what am I going to get out of this place while I'm here, right? In the beginning, I was just doing time. But the reality is that like to live the life, because I was here because I wanted to have a better life. Well, I'm not going to get that better life if I don't push myself, right? If I don't try to do something different. Crap that gets you here, you have to want to do something different. You know, you have to want to be like whatever it is that you have to start challenging yourself here, man. And the more I did that, like the days got easier, the harder work got easier. The easier it was to be you know, get closer to my brothers and to listen to my leaders, you know, even when I'm like, oh, I want to roll my eyes sometimes when they're telling me stuff. But the reality is like there's still, when you step back after those moments where you rolling your eyes at somebody that's telling you what you're doing, and you sit there and you evaluate it, and you realize that, you know, man, if I just behave that way the first time, like, it's not that bad. It's really not that bad, you know. And I don't know, I've burned a lot of bridges, but it's crazy. It's crazy because I remember sitting in the front row and like being like, none of this is gonna work out. None of this stuff that I'm getting now, it's not gonna be like that. But it's, you know, because I couldn't see a week in advance, right? I couldn't see it, but over time, all those little things add up, man, and you just keep doing what you're supposed to do. Yeah, and it's just it eventually shows you what you're capable of. It shows you the person that you want to be, you know, and like I'm so happy, and the weird thing is like I look back to it and I'm like, I got all of the things here while I was here, you know, early in the program. I got them without really asking for them, which is strange. Like I remember I was an intern and I started going over to the thrift, and I never asked to be crew lead, right? At some point I just put my head down and just kept working hard and just doing what I was supposed to do, right? And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, over time, you know, I was there and I was like, oh wow, this is cool. I didn't expect this, you know. And then I remember being in seminar and I saw Logan and Brad and those guys, and they were in Corp D, and I remember like, man, I want to be over there. I would want to do what they're doing, you know. And I didn't even expect this. I didn't ask for this either, being Corp D, and it came my way, you know. So it's like, you know, if you just keep working hard at what you know what I'm saying? If you keep doing what you're supposed to do right now, even though you may not want to do it, right? And that's another lesson I learned. I always wanted everything fast, you know. It was like I wanted, you know, when I lost my career and I wanted to get a career again, right? And I didn't happen after 3 months or 6 months of sobriety, and I didn't get what I wanted right now. I didn't get it, right? So I'm gonna go use, and then I just piss all that work away, you know. And so like that's a really good lesson to learn here, you know. You just keep grinding. You just keep grinding, and don't let those 12 hours for that dumb shit you did, right? Don't let that crash you. Don't make you walk down the trail because someone talked to you and it didn't feel so well, right? Like, sucks, man. You know, sometimes, yeah, we're not going to like the way somebody tells us, you know, what we don't want to hear, but it is what it is. You know, make it to your pillow. That saying that I used to hate, but that's what I did. I was like, man, I hate today. I'm sick of working with this guy, you know. And I'm like, just get to my bed, just get to my pillow. Oh God, here I am saying it to myself. Just make it to my pillow. But the reality is that it does work, you know. And in the end, it makes all the crap that you think you're going through right now, like all the stuff that you'll get out of here, man. It just makes it so worth it, you know. So with that, and you know, that's what I got, and I appreciate you guys' time today. So, are there any questions? Don B.
Doing well for a while and had that lifestyle. Didn't I? Was there any barriers to offset that?
Well, you know, and I have thought about that, and one thing that I think is extremely important, you know, when I was, you know, I had a lot of people that tell me on and off throughout my life, hey, you need to go get some help, you know, a couple hospitalizations, and like, aren't you sick of this? Go get, you know, go seek some help, go seek groups or do whatever. And I used to just be like, none of that's for me, because I'd sober up and I'd be fine. But the reality is like they say, recovery is like lifelong. So like, you know, initially it's going to be alumni. I'm going to have to go to like, I'm going to go AA. And for me personally, I'm probably going to invest myself in some kind of a church faith-based system, you know, and then also too, like with what I was going through with my addiction was isolation. You know, I've met so many guys here, right? And like, man, I wish you guys were around years ago to like meet, like, hey, come hang out with me. I love snowboarding. I love riding motorcycles. Come on. Instead, I'm off doing this by myself, and then I'm just back to musing again. But no, I've made a lot of, hopefully a lot of lifelong friendships here by the time I'm done with this, you know. So staying connected for me is going to be super important, because I'm an isolator. If I isolate, it's going to be all bad. Isaac. So I don't know if some of you guys know people that I've worked with, but what I really started to do, I had somebody that I was, it just drove me crazy, right? And I started to really try to like look at it through their lens. We talk about that all the time. I try to look at it through somebody else's perspective. Like, what has this person gone through? You know, maybe I have more insight instead of just, you know, friction versus friction. I was able to be okay with some things. I'm like, you know, this is the way they see things. Being okay with it really, really helped me, right? Because I was like, this person maybe has not had this happen in their life, or they haven't had these things, or they don't understand this experience. So it's like trying to understand what somebody else is going through, and how can I diffuse it? How can I work around it without it, you know what I'm saying, without it taking away my whole day, you know? And so you know, we all butt heads with somebody, right? But you know, a lot of the guys like you and Devila had to work together for like what, 2 straight weeks, you know, and you just start to see things through other people's perspective, and it opens it up, man. It drops barriers down, and you know, you can learn how to work with people. May not always get along with them, but you can definitely learn how to work with them, make that happen. Zoe.
Do you feel like using the process was very beneficial?
So, you know, there were definitely moments like where I'm like, man, hey, don't do that, right? Do not do that, right? Or like, don't do that, you know, definitely don't do that in front of me, right? Because you have to set those boundaries. You know, when I first got here, I saw people that, you know, it cost a whole lot of people walking down the trail because they just let things go on. So like, I feel like establishing like that you're not going to put up with certain things, you're not going to let certain things fly around you, you know, then you're not going to have those things happen around you. And I mean, and I think what happens is like, maybe, I don't know, when I try to step out for myself, I think I've given off enough of a perception that like, you're not going to be the guy that's going to be like, hey, Nick, just guess what I got? Or, hey, look what I'm doing. Cause you already know that I'm just like, I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to deal with it. You know, you should be doing better, obviously. And I'm not going to let your stuff that you're doing or whatever, bring me down with you. And, you know, you need some help. Let's not do that. Any other questions? Yeah, whether you believe me or not, I never once thought about it. Not once. And you know, it's like, I mean, like I told you before, like once once there's no safety net behind me, I'm not jumping into a black hole. You know, I don't have a safety net. This is it, right? Once I feel like the alternative, that's it. There's no more cushion. Once I know there's no more cushion, then I'm, you know, it's a stupid way to try to learn a lesson, but I have no cushion. And so this is it. I never once thought about leaving. All right, thanks guys.